Just letting a few more people in before we begin the session. Okay. So welcome to Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, and welcome to everyone joining this session either on Zoom or Facebook Live. I'd like to give a very nice warm welcome to everyone, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining in this second monthly Q&A that we have with Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo. And so Jetsunma is already here with us. Jetsunma, how are you? We hope we are feeling well and ready for this Q&A. But before we actually go into the questions, you've been part of a very historic event just recently. So would you care to tell us about your experience in Bhutan and what happened and why is it so important for the monastic institution in Tibetan Buddhism?
Thank you, Tirupe. Well, basically, yes, we just got back from Bhutan, where His Holiness the J. Kempo, who is the head of the monastic body in Bhutan, bestowed the bhikshuni or full ordination on 142 very fortunate nuns. This is the first time in Tibetan history that this full ordination for nuns has been given to such a group of nuns. Occasionally, once or twice in Tibetan history, some High Lama gave it like to his sister or some other close nun, one or two, but never in such a public event, which was supported and requested by the royal family, the king and the queen mother and all the royal family, to the J. Kempo, requesting him to please give this higher ordination. We have been spent the last 30 or 40 years talking about it. I mean, from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Karmapa and everybody talks about it. But this was the first time it actually was given. And so we are very, very joyful. It was a very auspicious occasion. 3 of our nuns came from DGL and 21 nuns were sent by His Holiness the Gyalwang Drukpa, head of the Drukpa Kagyu tradition, to Bhutan from Ladakh. And so it was very, very momentous occasion, really, that a High Lama of such status finally stepped up and said, let's stop talking about it, let's just do it. The reason why it was never given before, and nuns up to now have only received up to the novice ordination, is because the ordination for nuns was never introduced into Tibet. In the 8th century, when Guru Padmasambhava was in Tibet, the king, Jetsunma Tenzin, requested Shantarakshita to please introduce the monastic ordination into Tibet. So monks from India came to Tibet to start the monastic ordination, but they forgot to invite any nuns. And so therefore, as a result, this full ordination for nuns was never there in the Tibetan tradition. But now, fortunately, it has been brought back again by His Holiness the Gyalwang, by His Holiness the J. Kempo, and the monastic body of Bhutan, who were in full evidence and very happy.
Fantastic, Jetsunma. We can all rejoice about that. It's quite, as you say, a momentous event in the history of Tibetan Buddhism. May it ripple out into all the lineages and all the parts of the world that seek monastic ordination, and the fourfold Sangha may it flourish.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Lovely. Well, with that beautiful opening, we can now go into the questions for this session. We're still answering some of the questions that were left over from the previous sessions. So we'll start with one question from Elena Navarro, who says, how can I create merit without the anxiety of wanting to achieve the awakened, peaceful mind, without the expectations that lead me to despair for not being able to progress in the path, for not being able to understand, for being somehow anchored in conventional reality?
Well, my feeling is, my dear, just relax and take one step at a time, okay? Merit just means good karma, right? And this depends on speaking and acting with a positive state of mind. That's all it is. If we think, speak, and act with positive motivation, we are creating merit, right? We are creating positive karma. So we cannot achieve a peaceful mind by being anxious about it, right? I mean, it's so just relax, really just relax, maintain an open awareness, stay in the present as much as possible without trying too much, okay? It's the tension which comes from trying, which is so counterproductive. We don't need to, we just need to be moment to moment to moment as clear and conscious and kind as we can be. That's enough, right? We are all anchored in conventional reality, right? Unless we are 8th level bodhisattvas who have had direct experience of emptiness and can remain within that level of realization. So please, in our conventional reality, please just cultivate a kind heart towards yourself as well as towards others, right? Be kind to yourself, make friends with yourself, encourage yourself. And then that spreads out towards all others, and moment to moment, you are creating merit, which we then will share with all beings. So enjoy.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jetsunma. That's a very good reminder. So we can then move on to the next question, which comes from Ira Frank and says, what would you offer as a practice for Dharma followers who were abused by their teachers? How can they forgive their teachers, and can they trust them afterwards and remain their students?
Well, of course, this is a very painful subject. I mean, there's no doubt. So we have to deal with, if this happens to us, how to deal with it skillfully is the question, how to take it on the path. So one thing I think we need to appreciate the teachings which have been offered by the teacher, right? All that we have learned from the teacher, we can say, be grateful for, right? Because after all, you know, this is what we have learned, this is what we have understood on account of what the teacher has given to us. So we should remember that, we shouldn't forget it. But we should also understand that those who have experience and no doubt some degree of realization may still have a shadow side, which is unresolved issues like anger, lust, jealousy, and so forth. These issues which have been suppressed and never been faced, because in their training, they are not encouraged to face these issues, to be honest, you know. So because of these unresolved issues which have been pushed to one side, you know, we should have compassion. We can have compassion for those who have to keep up their face, who have to maintain their mask, you know, the mask of the perfect bodhisattva. Because all the students expect their teacher to be completely perfect, and in order to keep their students, they have to appear to be completely perfect. But at the same time, there's this unaddressed side to them, which has normally been suppressed, and now suddenly it is manifesting itself. So this is very sad for them and for the students and for everybody, right? So, please understand that even the teachers are still struggling on the path. I mean, we are supposed to see them as perfect Buddhas, but in actual fact, they themselves will say that they're still walking. And so, therefore, we should have compassion, but at the same time, we should be cautious, right? We should be cautious with our trust. Whether they are trustworthy or not, we have to see, right? I mean, as a very high Lama observed to me, sometimes foreigners are too naive and they believe everything they're told. And I said, well, we're told to believe everything we're told. And he just laughed and said, no, you don't believe everything you're told. And this is the fact, is to have devotion, but at the same time, some common sense. If there's a red light inside, trust in that red light, that warning light, and don't believe everything that you're told. Maybe change your teacher.
If I may follow up on that last statement, Jetsunma, so that's something I feel that especially foreigners get very attached to, the idea of one teacher, one guru, one lama. This is the person I have to study with. This is the only person that can teach me. What's your view on that?
Well, if you ask the teachers themselves, they all will tell you they had 20 lamas, 30 lamas. One of them said he had 60 lamas. And of course, amongst all of those who have given teaching and that he's received their authorization from, one or two or three are the main ones. But most lamas have several, even root gurus. They do not, I mean, as Tibetan Buddhism has spread, especially in the West, it's become very territorial. And so therefore, the students are often discouraged from going to meet with other lamas, but in actual fact, anybody who has anything to teach us is precious and we should listen to it. So while we have our main practice and our main, lineage, we are enriched by hearing other versions, other ways of looking at things, and alternative methods of approach. We shouldn't be afraid of that, even while we stay with one particular practice or lineage. We are enhanced by learning more and more from as many teachers, authentic teachers, as we can. And if for any reason we are deeply disappointed in our own teacher, then it is fair enough to say, thank you very much for everything you taught me. I deeply appreciate it. May you live long, but I'm going to find another teacher. And that's okay. That is not breaking Samaya. The Lama has broken Samaya with you, not the other way around.
That's brilliant, Jetsunma. I think a lot of people need to hear that more. And one thing that I've heard you say before, which I think is also brilliant to this very same point, is that while the students should have pure perception of the Lama should also have pure perception of the students, isn't it? Wonderful. So let's move on to the next question, which is a little bit more philosophical, but comes from Jeffrey Leonard and saying, can you explain the main differences between Buddha nature, soul, and Atman?
Well, I'm not taking this from an especially philosophical point of view in which we always have to prove that we are right and everyone else is wrong. But ultimate reality, which the Buddha called the unconditioned, the unborn, the deathless, the Dhammakaya. They are all words to cover something which is beyond words, right? And Buddhists do not have a copyright on ultimate reality. ultimate reality is just there. What the Buddhists do have is a clear path to the realization of that reality. Yes, that they do have a very clear path. But we all have Buddha nature, right? Which is the nature of our unborn primordial consciousness. That's who we really are, right? Everybody. This non-dual consciousness is that which connects us with all living beings. And therefore it's compared to the space or the sky because it's all permeating, right? It's not something we can grasp and say, this is mine, right? So therefore, the problem with words like Buddha nature, soul, Atman, is that it tends to give the idea of something which is separate and unique, right? The ultimate I. Rather than the idea that the whole I concept is being transcended, right? By the realization of our innate unity and interdependence. That's the point. This is why words such as emptiness, spaciousness, deathless are helpful, because these kind of words cannot trap us into thinking this means something. You know, the idea of a soul is that this is me, this is the unique part of me. Whereas, in fact, the unique part of me is this emptiness and interdependence with all living beings. And that's the point. Words can trap us. But the experience, the genuine experience, is beyond words, right? And then we come back and we put a label on space, right? That's the problem. And then we argue about it, right? And debate about it. But even in the Dzogchen text, for example, even Kami Chame, who's a great Dzogchen master, he says, some call it Atman, some call it Anatman, non-Atman, but it just is what is, you know. I mean, we put all these names on it for something which is nameless.
Definitely. Words are tricky.
Yeah, they.
But one of the things that comes regarding this whole issue, and where people tend to get perhaps confused between the Buddhist view and the non-Buddhist view, is, you know, the question if there is reincarnation, if there's no Atman, if there's no soul, what gets reincarnated? What goes on to the next life?
Consciousness. Consciousness is a stream, right? So the point is that, you know, the stream closes one place and just keeps going, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. It never ends. And so that consciousness, which is also a conceptual consciousness, takes rebirth. But underlying all that is non-conceptual consciousness, which is beyond birth and death, right? This is still the consciousness, the flowing of the consciousness with the karma is still part of samsara, right? That's why, because we cling to it and think of it as me and mine, we get reborn again and again and again. When the ego finally dissolves into the open spaciousness of our empty nature, then we are released from samsara. That's what liberation is all about. But, you know, I mean, again, words, when we went to a conference on self and non-self, Buddhism talks about non-self, in Kashmir, one of the main speakers was this Hindu Swami on behalf of Atman, who gave the Advaita Vedanta view, quoting the whole way through from Nagarjuna's Madhyamaka Karika. He said that Nagarjuna was the great exponent of Vedanta as well as Madhyamaka. And so there you go. He said that's the ultimate truth, which is by its very nature, as I say, beyond words. beyond concepts. It's our concepts which trap us.
Wonderful explanation, Jetsunma. Thank you. I think we can go on to the next question, which comes from Carla Isidoro. It says, sometimes I find discussions in social media about the discrimination of women in Buddhism, which are dismissed by just saying this is a problem of the dualistic mind. Perhaps concepts like man or woman have no room in absolute reality, but we live in a dualistic world. Do you think this argument is sometimes used as spiritual bypass for this and many other problems?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, indeed. I mean, you know, indeed, the patriarchal system in Buddhism, as well as everywhere else, is based on a duality within which we are normally living, right? So the point is that there are the two truths: the absolute truth, Buddha nature is beyond gender, and the conventional or relative truth, in which, you know, there are males and females. So the point is, I mean, I always say it's like a brick. If you take a brick, then on an ultimate level, it is empty. Even from the point of view of quantum physics, it's empty energy and space. But if I hit you with that brick, you're going to bruise, right? Because however much you're saying empty, 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 you're still going to get bashed on the head with it. So, you know, that's the fact of the matter. All these people with their high fat sounding terminology, but when it comes down to it, you know, there is male, there is female, there is patriarchy, but it's getting better, right? I mean, nowadays the feminine is more appreciated than it used to be. People at least are talking about it, thinking about it, having conferences about it. And the opportunities which were once enjoyed solely by men or males is now become available for everyone, for females as well as males. I mean, this is the thing. It is getting better. Of course, we have a way to go. But as, for example, in Tibetan Buddhism, nuns are now highly educated. They have the same educational level as monks. And just as we said when we started the program, in Bhutan now, they have finally given the full ordination for nuns. So nuns also likewise have received the same level of ordination as the monks had historically enjoyed. And so things are better than they were. But nobody's denying that Tibetan Buddhism is patriarchal, hierarchical, and medieval. That's the fact of the matter.
Brilliant, Jetsunma. But bringing it back to the point of the question, I think it's very, very tricky to detect in oneself that we're using spirituality as a bypass for something else. And also its close brother, spiritual materialism, isn't it? Any tips you have on being able to analyze our own conduct to see if we're falling into any of these traps of the spiritual path?
Well, we probably are. I mean, you know, unless we are really beings of incredible wisdom and compassion, we're bound to be falling flat on our face as we walk across the path. The important thing is that when we fall down, we pick ourselves up again and we keep walking. So that's it, you know. I mean, we just have to become more and more aware of the traps along the path, and where we can circumvent them, then we do. But sometimes we fall straight down into the pit, but we climb out again. You know, I mean, I do think that everybody should recognize that this is a path we're walking, and it's not, you know, a 6-lane highway. And we are going to come across all sorts of obstructions on the path, but we use those obstructions as the path. And in that way, we develop our inner understanding and our inner ability to keep going. That's the most important thing. and to cultivate our awareness and our kindness towards ourselves as much as towards everybody else. I mean, if we think we have none of that and we're never going to be spiritual materialists and we're never going to fall into it, that would be a problem, I think. As long as we're conscious that these dangers are there, we can be a bit careful and we can put us, our spotlight on when it gets a bit dark.
Very true, Jetsunma. Thank you for that practical and straight to the point answer. That was beautiful. Thank you. So let's move on to the next one, coming from Elmer Garcia. And it says, although I have experienced the benefits of Lojong and have faith in the refuge of the three jewels, I find that I auto-sabotage my practice more and more and only come up with excuses before starting. It is like a kind of fear of going deeper into my practice. Could you please give some advice on how to deal with this and recover the initial enthusiasm?
Well, of course, this is something which many people come up against. There's in the beginning, we start with so much enthusiasm. And then at a certain point, this resistance, inner resistance builds up. And, we find excuses for putting it off. I think one thing is that it's very important to take refuge in the three jewels, really from the heart, and recognize how incredibly precious they are in all this world. Really, nothing better. I mean, sometimes we get very fed up and we think, oh, this is too much. And then we can't think of anything better to do. So what do? You just keep going, right? I would say make a commitment to every day do a session, 1 or 2 sessions, and keep those sessions fairly short, right? Just do them. And try to think of a practice which normally you would enjoy, either shamatha practice or analytical meditations, Mahmudra Dzogchen, Yidam practice. A lot of people enjoy doing Tara. Whatever the practice is, keep it fairly short, but do it, right? And don't listen to yourself. When I was in the cave, because of the lack of exercise, when I was doing a retreat, I recognized that in order to keep my body healthy, I had to do yoga. So I hate exercise. And I did an hour and a half yoga every day, even if it was snowing outside and the floor was wet, or if it was hot, if it was cold. The one question I did not ask myself was, do I feel like doing yoga? Don't ever ask yourself, do I feel like sitting down and practicing? Just do it, right? You have a time and you do it. So that I would say is the most thing. So then one could read some inspiring literature or, inspiring books or just articles, watch inspiring talks online and so on, right? And to remember that all our problems are created by our wild monkey mind, right? And how wonderful it would be to have a well-tamed mind. A well-tamed mind brings happiness, the Buddha said, right? So there's nothing more precious in all this world than the Dharma. So try not to waste this opportunity. So that later we look back with regret. All the factors were there, but my lack of enthusiasm was gone. And try cultivating this loving awareness throughout the day. Anyone you meet, any opportunity you have, just this open clarity and good-heartedness towards all beings, including oneself. And so that the whole day becomes one's Dharma practice, right? The whole day becomes an opportunity for practicing the paramita, for radiating kindness, and especially to cultivate a time, probably early in the morning or in the evening, where one has the dedication to just sit. And even if the mind is monkey mind, doesn't matter. You're sitting and the motivation is good. And this is a common problem, so she shouldn't worry. And often if one starts, it's like a car which suddenly, stops. But if you keep, tinkering with it a bit, it will get going again.
Thank you so much, Jetsunma. Again, very precious advice. So we'll move on to the next question, coming from Denny Coney. How do we find the line between a situation that calls for an inner change or a change of our own perspective versus a situation that requires action to alleviate suffering?
Well, if we act with compassion and skillful means to alleviate suffering, then that's also transforms our consciousness, right? So I don't see a duality here. Inner change and outer action are two sides of the same coin, right?
Yep, I agree. Perhaps he or she is referring to when there's a difficult situation and we're just looking to, it would be best to just look into our own feelings and sensations and do nothing. As Shantideva say, like a block of wood, or to actually engage.
You're angry. That's when you're angry.
Mm.
And rather than giving way to anger, because you can't transform your mind into a mind of compassion and patience, at least shut up and don't do anything, right? Until the moment passes and we can get a bit more clarity in the mind. But otherwise, if you see, the opportunity that is possible to alleviate suffering, then that is motivated by our compassion, right? And the more we are motivated by compassion, the more our mind is transformed, right? So, I mean, that's to my mind, they're the same thing.
Mm.
Right? After all, you wouldn't help anybody unless you felt the need to help them. And that is based on your motivation. And presumably your motivation is based on pure empathy.
Compassion-informed action. That's a very beautiful compass. Very beautiful. Nice. Okay, so let's go on to the next one then. Coming from Natalia Siequera. How to recognize how to recognize intuitions, often understood as the gut feelings, how to recognize them, differentiate them from desire. These two states drive us to do something. How to distinguish whether we are guided by wise intuition and not by a desire. Also, is a desire necessarily negative?
All right, so start with the second part of the question first, right? Okay. About is desire necessarily negative? So there are good desires and negative desires, right? In fact, I think in Sanskrit and Tibetan, there are different words. We only have that word in English. There's a desire for spiritual transformation, for increasing our love and wisdom to help others. The bodhicitta aspiration, which is a desire to attain enlightenment in order to liberate all beings throughout time and space. A big desire. I mean, you can't think of a bigger desire than the desire to be of benefit for all beings by attaining enlightenment and then helping them universally forever, right? What bigger desire is that, right? So there is a desire to be helpful, there's a desire to be kind, there's a desire to be generous, and so forth. So these are good desires, right? They are aspiration on the path. Nothing wrong with that. And what they're talking about is desire in the sense of greed and lust and these negative desires, which are based on the ego and grasping and clinging. Those are bad desires, right? Good desires are the opposite, being generous and kind and altruistic. Okay, So as to intuition, genuine intuition is the inner certainty of what to do, right? It's beyond doubt. It rises from a deep level of our consciousness, right? Often a wordless knowing. We just know, right? So the usual gut feelings are just the conceptual mind putting two and two together based on our past experience. It's a very different level of consciousness, actually, and which is why sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not okay, right? I mean, sometimes our so-called intuition is true, sometimes it's way out. But genuine intuition is something beyond words. And it doesn't come very often, but when it comes, there is no doubt. There's total certainty that this is how it is.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification, Jetsunma. So we can move on to the next question coming from Deepali Wag. Is it okay not to surround ourselves with people, close people, who disturb our mindset or say do not match with our mindset?
Well, you know, of course, obviously, we can learn to cultivate our patience, kindness, and compassion. You know, how can we cultivate patience and kindness and compassion if we are only surrounding ourselves with people that we like, right? It's easy to be loving to the lovable, right? But what about the unlovable? So maybe we need to change our own mindset rather than worry about the mindset of others, right? Because we're always going to be surrounded at some point by people who see things differently, have different values, and are, from our own personal point of view, difficult, right? I mean, we are always seeing things from our own. Of course, it's always very good to associate with wise friends. The Buddha recommended this very much. People who share our values, and we can find people who agree with our own ideas and that we feel comfortable with. Of course, I mean, wise association with good friends was very much praised by the Buddha and considered to be very, very important. So, but difficult people are also there to help us to grow, right? And to learn more of the lessons of life. Because if we only associate with like-minded people, that's very pleasant, but we don't really always learn too much. And so both are good, right? But basically, we have to change our perception and our mindset, not worry about changing the mindset of others. So if karma has put you in a situation where you're surrounded by people who don't, you don't feel in sync with, then maybe also cultivate a good heart towards people who you find difficult. Maybe that's a great learning lesson, as well as having a few friends that you can just relax with and feel at one.
Brilliant, Jetsunma. If I may, I want to hijack this question a little bit with a bit of my personal experience, because as you know, I just went back home recently after years of being around here in this beautiful, wonderful place. And I noticed that I hadn't cultivated patience because I wasn't surrounded with people who were difficult, as some people in my family can sometimes be. And I also don't have the skills yet. So how can one do if you don't have those difficult people in your life? Of course, it's not recommendable to go seek them, right? But at the same time, how can we cultivate patience if we don't have those triggers active in our life? Is there a way that we can actually train our minds to be more patient with the people who are difficult while not having them around?
Well, I mean, you know, eventually you're going to find somebody. So as you say, you don't have to go and look for difficulties. I mean, if you sit there, eventually difficulties will come. And the important thing is that when difficulties do come, I mean, you might have at this time a nice little patch of good karma where you are mostly meeting with people who are easy to be with, but it doesn't last. And eventually you're going to come across people who are annoying, difficult, unsympathetic, and so forth. So at that time, when that happens, then to be on alert and think, right, this is the time for me to practice my Lojong practices, my mind training. These people are helping me to develop these very important qualities of loving kindness towards those we have a little difficulty with, and especially patience and empathy, and these qualities which are so essential on the path, and without which, without these difficult people, how could we cultivate them? We will just lull ourselves into thinking, actually, I'm really a very nice person, because we are never dealing with challenges. So instead of finding these people an obstacle on our practice, the really important thing is to see that they are our opportunity for practice. They are helping us on the path, and that they are not in any way being obstructive. They are our spiritual teachers.
Thank you so much, Jetsunma. I can definitely relate to what you said. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go on to the next question then. It comes from Gillian Henle. How has the role of women changed in Buddhism since your conversation with His Holiness the Dalai Lama highlighted in the documentary Cave in the Snow? And what work lies in our pursuit of equality and enlightenment?
Well, I mean, again, in the last 20 years, certainly for nuns in the Tibetan tradition, everything has radically changed, because now the nuns are usually well educated. They're studying the same texts and undertaking the same practices as the monks. And they themselves are becoming teachers and running their own nunneries. So the status for nuns, for sure, has taken a quantum leap. And also in the lay society, of course, women now regularly attend college and university and undertake, very important roles in society. So things have really, really changed a lot, and they are improving. I mean, there is room for more improvement, as always, but nonetheless, things have gotten a lot better. And as I say, recently in Bhutan, with the bestowal of the full Bhikshuni ordination for women, for these nuns, then that is really a huge step forward. It's the one thing which nuns did not have. They only had novice ordination. They did not have full ordination. They were not part of the fourfold Sangha, which the Buddha envisioned, of fully ordained monks, fully ordained nuns, laymen, laywomen, which he said was like a table with four legs, very, very stable. And this had been the aspiration of the Buddha since straight after his enlightenment. And so now he said that where there is the fourfold Sangha, that is a stable Buddhist country, a Dharma country. So from that point of view, Tibet was never a Dharma country, because they only had 3.5 legs. They didn't have the 4 legs. But now they do. I mean, now we hope that the stone which the Je Khenpo has thrown into the lake of the Dharma will send out many, many ripples. And so with that, everything is fulfilled. One nun at the ordination ceremony said that until now, she had always prayed that in her next lifetime, she could come back as a male in order to become a monk and fulfill all the criteria for enlightenment, including full monasticism. But she said, now I don't need to come back as a male anymore, because now as a female, I have all the requirements necessary for enlightenment in this lifetime. And so that's how the situation is now. It's getting better.
Definitely thanks to people like you, Jetsunma, and of course many
Yeah.
others, but you've been at the forefront of that. Would you say
Well,
now, Jetsunma, that now the challenge is for Western monastics in the Tibetan tradition to establish the Sangha in a better way?
yeah, it's been very difficult for Western monastics because they come from a completely different background to Himalayan monastics. I mean, Himalayan monastics usually start monasticism when they're very, very young. I mean, really, often just children or teenagers. And so their training starts in a very early age, and they gather together as a community to study and practice together. But most Western monastics start, when they're already very mature. They are, of course, much more highly educated and much more confident often. But at the same time, they are the traditional form of training is maybe not so suitable. So therefore, people like the Venerable Bhikshuni, Tibetan children, and others have tried very successfully to establish a monastic training center, especially for women and for nuns in the West, with the lay society very involved in their support and studying and learning with the nuns, and at the same time supporting them in their own endeavors. So this has been very, very successful, but nonetheless, it is relatively unusual, rare. And most of the foreigners who have been ordained in the Tibetan tradition live fairly isolated lives. They do not live together as a community for various reasons, and often without any training. I mean, you can get ordained today and tomorrow there you are without any training at all. So again, we want to try to introduce the opportunity for more training for people who do take ordination. So it's a big subject, and we have something called the Alliance for Non-Himalayan Nuns, and we are looking into a situation, and any suggestions anyone has of how we could go forward, we would be very appreciative. At the moment, mostly the Alliance supports people who want to take out scholarships or follow courses and so forth to help finance them in their Dharma activities. But we are also trying to think of having more of a training program also, if possible.
I'm going to share the link to the website of the Alliance. So for all of those who are interested of having more information on that, and I will share it on Facebook as well once the session is over. So wonderful. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Jetsunma is the 10th question from, I'm going to butcher this last name, Widi Setyawan. How to face our own demons, our fear, worries, etc. Are they related to our attachment?
Well, we allow our various demons, meaning our negative emotions, to arise in consciousness without trying to suppress or avoid them. Normally, if we feel fear, if we feel anger, if we feel jealousy, we think, oh, we shouldn't feel like that because we're good little Buddhist practitioners, and therefore we try to suppress them. So here we don't do that. We allow whatever is our underlying negative feelings, our afflictive emotions, including fear and anger, to arise in our consciousness. We can sit there. And we don't try to suppress them, we don't try to avoid them or deny them, right? We can welcome a difficult feeling and listen to what it's trying to tell us, right? And we can at the same time feel what part of the body, especially fear or anger or lust, what part of the body is reacting to this emotion, right? Because we are also very physically connected with our emotional states, right? Then send these feelings of fear and anger, etc. Lots of love and relax, right? All these feelings are based on our ego, right? This sense of I, whose very nature is attachment, right? It's this grasping, clinging, which causes the problem. But on the other hand, the ego doesn't disappear just because we say, I have no ego, right? The Buddha said there is no ego, so there I am, I'm egoless. Who is saying I'm egoless, if not the ego, right? But we can sit there with the fear, with the anger, and ask ourselves, who is afraid? Because it's a very strong feeling. Who is experiencing this feeling? That can, with a kindness, right? Not with fear of fear, but with curiosity and friendliness, to use the very fear or anger or whatever as a means of going deeper into our consciousness. Who is experiencing this feeling? And don't give ourselves an answer, right? Depending on what we've read or whatever somebody said. But just with that open curiosity, look inside. Who is feeling fear? Who is afraid? And in this way, we take what looks like an obstacle on the path, and it becomes an enormous opportunity for transformation.
Wow, brilliant. Thank you, Jetsunma, for that. That's very, very, very powerful.
You know, sometimes I tell this story of Milarepa. I think it was Milarepa, might have been somebody else. But anyway, he was in his cave. And he went back to his cave one day. And there in the cave were 5 demons. And so he started using powerful protector mantras. And they just laughed. Oh, that doesn't work. All right. So then he sat down and he meditated on emptiness. Empty, empty, empty. All the projection of my mind. Then he opened his eyes and they were just looking at him. Oh. So then he said, okay, you are my guests. You are very welcome. Let's all just sit round and have a nice cup of tea. So then he turned around and he started his fire, put his pot on with some water, started boiling it up for tea. And then when he turned round, there were the demons transformed into beautiful local spirits who said, we will help you to protect the Dharma. We take refuge in you. So the point is that if we're afraid of our fear, or if we philosophically try to dissolve the fear, it doesn't usually work. But if we befriend the fear and say you're welcome, and look into the fear, into the nature of the fear, and listen to what the fear wants to tell us, as well as asking ourselves, who is feeling afraid? This can transform the fear, the anger, and so forth into a very powerful, enlightened energy, which is the basis behind it all. So we have to be skillful.
Indeed, indeed. So let's move on to the next one from Terhi. When someone who is not from a traditional Buddhist country takes a Buddhist practice, the integration starts to cause a cultural illness. Obviously, one cannot abandon their own culture. So is there some practice that would balance the situation?
You know, I mean, one thing is that Buddhism has always been very adaptable to whatever culture it finds itself within, right? So when it went to China, it became Chinese. So you get Thai Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. And when you look on the outside, it looks like they're all very different. But the inner practice, the inner Dharma, has stayed extraordinarily constant. I liken it to like if you have a vessel, right? You can have a glass or porcelain or jade or gold or plastic. Outside, it looks very different. But inside, the water, the nectar of the Dharma is the same. It just contains the Dharma. Don't get caught up in the outer show, right? This is very important. Wherever the Dharma has gone to, it has adapted itself. It's very adaptable, actually. It doesn't expect the culture to turn into itself. It turns into the culture. So Indian Buddhism, which was the Buddhist Buddhism, and Chinese Buddhism outwardly look very different. But when you talk about the actual view, the actual practices, the actual understanding, it's remarkably the same, right? So in the meantime, I would say just be, just cultivate the things which the Dharma is teaching us, like to become more aware, more kind, more loving and compassionate, to see things more clearly as they are, to be more ethical, cause no harm to others. None of this has anything to do with culture, right? It has to do with cultivating the mind and our speech and our actions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jetsunma. We'll move on to the next one. Again, I'm sorry if I butcher your last names. This is from Anne Smithers. In relation to the refuge tree, how can we overcome the resistance that may arise in the face of this male predominance?
I would say, well, put more females in there, right? We can give more attention to the 21 Taras. We can put anything on our refuge tree, right? So you can have the 21 Taras, Vajrayogini, other female deities, Mochik Ladron, Nishisoja, anybody, right? Now it's true that the lineage is usually male, but we can also include any favorite female teachers. You can put anyone on there, right? I mean, it's very adaptable. So, while appreciating the fact that the males have carried on the lineage through, all the centuries, I'm feeling deeply grateful to them. It's not that we're antagonistic towards the male representatives. Nonetheless, we can stick in all the females too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all. There are many female deities. There are many arahati. There are many female bodhisattvas. There are all those dakinis. I mean, stick them all in there. No problem.
That's brilliant. It's wonderful. I like that answer, particularly because I've never heard it before. Yeah, we can put whatever we like there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, let's move on to the next one. From Seda Ekinsi. I feel strong despair when I hear about animal cruelty or abuse news. I strongly feel that animals emit such a pure childlike joy, non-judging and loving awareness, which I happily notice and observe myself turning into. Seeing or hearing about beings that I consider so sacred getting tormented makes my heart sink. The emotions turn into a turbulence. how does a person such as yourself, experienced in practicing Dharma and Bodhisattva, react to such things? How you keep your inner balance and compassion towards all?
Well, of course, animals suffer, but so do humans. You know, I mean, humans also suffer. We have to accept that we are all the owners of our own karma, and we are all trapped in the prison house of samsara, right? Animals or humans. Animals can also be very brutal to each other. Animals are all not sweetness, love, and light. You know, they eat each other. That's, I mean, the carnivorous ones devour the others, you know? I mean, so many animals live in fear their whole lives of being attacked, not just by humans, but by other animals, right? We shouldn't, you know, glorify the animal kingdom. This is nature, right? Red in tooth and claw, as they say, right? So, you know, on the other hand, if we are cruel to others, to other beings, then in time we also will receive the fruit of that action, right? Isn't that sad? Right? So fishermen are also, the fishermen are also the object of compassion for his negative act of killing, right? As well as the fish which have been killed. Because, you know, yes, the fish was killed, suffered, but this fisherman also is creating very negative karma. Even he might think it's okay. So that in the future, he will also maybe get reborn as a fish, right? So we're all embroiled in this. It's not just, you know, animals are innocent and humans are bad. Animals kill each other, animals maim each other, animals likewise are caught in this whole cycle of birth and death. So when we see someone being cruel to animals, of course, we should try to help as much as we can. But humans are also very cruel to humans. And animals are very cruel to animals. You know, so all of us have Buddha nature. And eventually, all of us will be liberated.
May it be so.
Yeah. Might take time.
But we do our best. Okay, let's move on to the next one then. From Bianca Lacerda. How to overcome the need to be seen and accepted?
My feeling when I read that was that perhaps she does not really enjoy being herself, right? If we don't accept ourselves, then we feel the need for the approval of others. Do you understand? So maybe first she should make friends with herself, right? By practicing loving kindness, meditations, first directed towards oneself and then directed towards others. And to remember that we all do have Buddha nature. So my feeling is that her need to be seen and recognized by others is because she's not really appreciating herself. If she appreciated herself and was really good friends with herself, she would have that inner confidence that it wouldn't matter whether other people see you and appreciate you or not. Who cares? And probably with that kind of personality, which is at ease with themselves, she would then attract the kind of appreciation which she feels is lacking. Does that make sense? You know, why do you need to be seen and accepted? It's because she's not accepting herself.
Yep.
So start from where you are. The Buddha said that when we practice loving kindness and compassion meditations, we start with ourselves. We make ourselves feel accepted, well-balanced, and at peace within ourselves. Then that You know, if we're friends with ourselves, then that radiates out in our attitude towards others. We don't have to seek their approval. They will like us because we appreciate others. So we make friends with ourselves, and that allows us to feel genuine friendship towards others, not just because we want them to like us. Right? If we're seeking other people's approval and liking, then probably it's counterproductive. Right? But if we don't care whether people like and see us or not, but we just like them for themselves, because we ourselves are at peace within ourselves and accept ourselves, then that will create a feeling of harmony and friendship with others. Right? So she's starting from the wrong side.
Interesting. Very, very nice point, Jetsunma. What about the other extreme that can happen, though, when, you know, we become a little bit cynical of what other people say, and we just, you know, completely ignore it or disregard it because we don't really care about what other people say, but in a kind of negative way? We become too...
Well, I think again that is because we don't have loving kindness towards ourselves, and we don't have loving kindness towards others. Right? I mean, the Buddha said that first we make friends with ourselves, then those that we appreciate and love, which is easy, wishing them to be well and happy and at peace. Then those to whom we are indifferent towards, right, that we don't care one way or the other, recognizing all beings want happiness. They might not know how to get it, they might be looking in the wrong direction, but basically they want to feel okay. So also towards neutral people, and then towards those we have problems with and difficulties, wishing all beings to be well and happy and at their ease and peaceful. So if we have that warmth of affection towards all beings, it's true we don't care what they think about us, but that's because we're only interested in what we think about them, which is that they should be well and happy.
Great. Thank you, Jetsunma. I think it's very easy to forget that the loving kindness practice is so much at the core of the Buddhist teachings.
It was one of the first things the Buddha ever taught.
Mm-hmm.
Along with how to make the mind calm and clear, came the cultivation of warm feelings towards oneself and towards all other beings.
Great reminder. Thank you, Jetsunma. We've come to our last question for this session, coming from Kelly Nagasawa. It's a pretty short question, but perhaps the answer will not be so easy to say. What advice do you have for aspiring monastics?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, one has to decide on the tradition that one intends to follow, because it's very different. The situation is very different in the various schools, right? Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Tibetan. So, you know, in different situations, if you're going to be a Theravada nun in Thailand, very different from trying to follow the Tibetan tradition in India or in the West. Second, the first thing I always ask when people tell me they want to be a monk or a nun in foreigners is, how will you support yourself? Which is a very, very sad comment on the situation, because you've left home for homelessness. And then we say, well, how are you going to financially survive? But the fact is that in the Tibetan tradition, at least, there is no support, basically. No financial support. You're on your own. Not only is there no financial support for monastics, and there's few places in which to go to be trained. So it's often, therefore, a very lonely life, because you don't belong anymore to the lay community, but there's no monastic community either. There's no Sangha. So speaking of the Tibetan tradition, it is often people think that therefore they're going to become part of the big Tibetan monastic community. That is not true. and they will be always left alone on their own, unless they're very, very young and can somehow mix in with the others. But almost never that happens. And so older people who are well educated and culturally already very established would find it very, very difficult to try to blend in a Himalayan environment. So therefore, I mean, some people are very happy if they, especially if they are, have people who have some financial security, because where are you going to live? Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to feed you? Who's going to clothe you? If you want to travel for teachings, who's going to pay for it? And so some people have a certain amount of financial security. They find a nice little place to practice, and they're quite happy being by themselves. And maybe nowadays there is a whole Zoom community out there. But in general, as I say to our nuns, our Himalayan nuns, I say just shaving your head and putting on robes doesn't make you a monastic. It's a change in your mindset. And people expect that the minute they put on robes, somehow they're going to change. And it's the same old me, it's still there. Now the work has to begin. So it's not so easy. Some people find it deeply inspiring and uplifting to be a monastic, and in that case, that is wonderful. But one should be, I think, very conscious of the problems that are there, and the difficulties, especially in gaining a sense of a monastic community and the necessary monastic training. So, I mean, I'm not trying to, discourage people, but they should understand it. It's actually not so easy.
Brilliant word of advice, Jetsunma. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time and your energy in answering these questions from people all over the world. Before we go, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. The first one being that we will not have July monthly Q&A because Jetsunma will be in retreat. Therefore, we will announce the next session a little bit later. The other thing that I wanted to say is that if there's anyone who feels so inclined to make any donations towards Jetsunma or towards the Donyu Gatsa link, the nunnery, I will share a link in the chat right now for those of you who want to check it out, and we'll share it also on Facebook later. So with that, Jetsunma, if you have any closing remarks, or if you can guide us in a dedication of any merit that we've created with the session, any words before we go?
Well, I guess the most important thing which has happened since last time we were on Zoom together has been this higher ordination for nuns. This is a big step forward for females in the Tibetan tradition and the Bhutanese tradition, which follows the Tibetan tradition, of course. And so I think that we should dedicate all the merit of that to the rise of the feminine, not just within women, but also within the men. The feminine wisdom, which is within us all. And may that rise up and flower and flourish and help the world back onto the path of sanity, because at the moment the world is a little bit crazy. And I think that it's partly because there is too much male energy out there, and so we need a little bit of a counterbalance, male energy, female energy in harmony. This is what we need, the yin and the yang. And so may that be, may that be. Thank you.
May it be so. Thank you so much, Jetsunma, for this wonderful session. Thank you everyone who's been watching either on Zoom or Facebook, and until the next time. Lovely to see you all.